2, 1, begin.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rob Retzloff with the Connected Commerce Council, and I'd like to welcome you to our Tech Forward webcast, where we'll be discussing the role of digital tools and technology platforms that empower businesses in Colorado's tourism economy. Before I begin, I'd first like to say welcome and thank you to the Vail Valley Partnership and Visit Fort Collins for partnering with us for this event today. I'd also like to make a shameless plug about the Connected Commerce Council and some research we've recently released about what we call the digital safety net and its importance to small businesses throughout the pandemic, especially as we build back toward recovery. The Connected Commerce Council, or 3C for short, is a nonprofit membership organization made up of thousands of small businesses from across the country that are empowered by digital tools. At 3C, we help ensure small businesses maintain affordable access to digital tools and online services that help their businesses grow more efficiently, boost their profitability, and ultimately find more success. We also conduct virtual workshops and provide educational resources for small businesses wanting to learn more about digital tools, as well as offer a couple of opportunities to advocate on behalf of their business and other small businesses. Such as meeting with their elected officials or writing letters to policymakers to ensure that they understand the essential role that technology plays for small businesses. I encourage you to visit our website, connectedcouncil.org, where you can sign up to become a member for free, read our research, and learn more about the digital safety net and the value of digital tools to small businesses. Now that that's out of the way, we can begin with the fun stuff and get going on our programming. Today, we're going to hear from some great panelists on how technology is fueling Colorado's recovery in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. We're also going to discuss the importance of digital tools, their use, how access to online marketplaces and digital services enabled many small businesses throughout Colorado to survive through some very difficult months. But before we begin with those discussions, I'd like to welcome Colorado State Representative Julie McCluskie to say a few words and set the context for today's discussion. Representative McCluskie, welcome. Great to have you.
Thank you, Rob. I'm delighted to be here. I first want to say thank you to the Connected Commerce Council, Visit Fort Collins, the Vail Valley Partnership, for inviting me to be a part of today's discussion. I am delighted to speak to you about the importance of tourism, technology, and what it means not just to Colorado, but what it means to Colorado through a pandemic, and how that is changing the way we think about our future. How technology is really that method to the madness to innovation and new improvements. A little bit about me. I represent House District 61, which includes 5 of the most beautiful counties in Colorado: Delta, Lake, Gunnison, Pitkin, and Summit counties. Those are counties that are home to 10 of the best ski resorts in the entire nation, and we are certainly the heart of Colorado's tourism and outdoor recreation economies. You know, tourism in this state is the economic driver for who we are and what this state represents. In 2019, 87 million visitors came to our state, spending more than $24 billion, which meant multiple billions in taxes for local and state government. You know, the pandemic has hit us hard, and it has really upended our local economies as well as our state economy. And while, you know, the resiliency of Coloradans is clear in our spirit and the good news that we see on the economic front, I will tell you that it has been over this last 12-month period, touch and go. You know, the pandemic hit in Summit County, my home county, very first of all in March of 2020. We saw, you know, some of our most beloved ski resorts shut down: Snowmass, Crested Butte, Vail, and Breckenridge. We saw our tiny resort communities turned to ghost towns overnight. And that really had a harsh and devastating economic impact. You know, the small business community has faced so many challenges during this time, whether it's been on the public health front or the economic front. And, you know, with the stay-at-home orders, the social distancing mandates, hundreds of our local shops and restaurants have had to, you know, close down, sometimes permanently. And all of us, including small business owners, have fought, you know, to continue to adapt, create more flexible approaches to how they are dealing with these challenges and these changes. And, you know, I want to say personally, I am absolutely delighted with some of the really impressive technological advancements and changes that some of our smaller businesses have used in order to combat some of these, you know, barriers and challenges with the pandemic. You know, first of all, restaurants, my favorite restaurants now provide, you know, ordering online, curbside pickup, great personal connection. You know, technology is providing ways to accommodate my specific orders. I now have a restaurant down here in Denver, well, where I just get to order my favorite, right? I don't have to go through the long list of choices and menu options when I visit that restaurant. And I think that's something that's probably here to stay. I see us in many of the systems of, you know, healthcare, education, and or food and beverage, tourism, travel, because of these really harsh and challenging times, we have seen innovation bubble up and improve systems in ways that we might never have realized before. You know, in Denver, I think this entire legislature is really focused on getting the state back up and working well for the people that we served. We've invested a lot of money in local business relief, small business relief, trying to help people keep their doors open. And in partnership with that, you know, we've seen some great technologies assist in that survival of kind of the heart and soul of our tourism industry. I want to share something that has just has been a part of my work down here in Denver with the expansion of technology in a challenge that we face with tourism. And all of you who have been in Colorado know what it's like to drive on I-70, whether you're headed up for a ski weekend or trying to come home after a July 4th parade. You know, the I-70 traffic congestion has been a huge challenge for us. And in trying to get those visitors up and down from the Front Range or from the airport to our majestic mountains, we have really struggled to try and find new and creative ways to get those cars off the road. And I'm excited that this year, thanks to a couple of very creative millennials, you know, individuals that have done some great research and are bringing a spirit of entrepreneurship to traffic congestion and traffic redesign. We've carried a bill this year to help promote carpooling apps, you know, a way for people down here in Denver to connect with each other and carpool when they want to come up for a ski visit or come for a luxurious summer getaway on the lake. And that technology innovation, getting cars off the road, getting more visitors up to the mountains in an efficient and certainly greener, more climate-friendly way, has been an exciting technological advancement that I'm really proud to be a part of. And again, a great example of how you know, people are thinking under pressure, how do we solve these problems and what sort of creativity can we bring to help make tourism thrive in this state. You know, I think it's worth highlighting that brick and mortar stores are another great example of businesses that have adapted and found digital tools to help enhance and enable their operations during this time. Business owners have launched social media campaigns to stay engaged with customers, leveraging video conferencing platforms to communicate with employees. I just talked to someone the other day who said they are now creating T-shirts that say, "You're on mute." And I thought, gosh, there's another business angle to the Zoom culture, the virtual culture of the meetings now that are a part of our day-to-day engagement. I also want to mention, some of the other brick and mortar businesses that for so long have been the heart of our travel and tourism industry, hotels. For a period of time, I was staying down here at a hotel while we were working on the state's budget. And I was so impressed with the way that I could access via my phone any of the services that I needed in the hotel, but could also get cleaning updates, regular information as to when my room had been sanitized, what other precautions the hotel had taken to make sure that I was safe. And that was something I could access privately. Just, that extra assurance that I was safe and the public health guidance was being followed. But it was a small and really thoughtful, I thought, customer service step, a way to let me know that they were looking out for me during my time there. Technology has been uplifting our economy for years now, and certainly not just during the pandemic. More than 11,000 tech companies call Colorado home, and it's estimated that a new startup launches every 3 days. So I wonder what will be coming next week. The sector has also made considerable investments in our state, becoming leading employers, attracting top talent from around the world. And in fact, the industry is worth $50 billion here and makes up 14.5% of the state's economy. That marriage of tourism, travel, and tech, certainly important to what is happening down at our Office of Economic Development and International Trade. The state has invested new dollars in making sure that we come back stronger after this pandemic and recession. Dollars invested in promoting Colorado for its amazing landscape and wonderful outdoor recreation opportunities. And obviously those promotions now are happening more and more online. They're happening via social media channels, and obviously through those tech connections that I think, particularly as we look at younger generations, that's how they're finding making their plans to travel, being a part of traveling in this state. The traditional driver of growth here has been tourism, and it will remain a part of who we are as Colorado and key to our economic recovery. I really look forward to seeing this summer when we are that much closer to normal, and having the opportunity to welcome visitors back to my community. And I know that will happen in large part because of those tech connections. I'm so grateful to be a part of today's conversation, to talk about digital resiliency, to talk about the importance of digital platforms at every level, at the local, at the state level, for our business community. And while we still have a long way to go, I'm optimistic and excited for what this next phase of tourism and travel will look like in Colorado, and want to thank again the Connected Commerce Council for their great leadership in making these conversations happen and sharing a wealth of knowledge, between experts, all of you in this field, and helping really drive that innovation for all of us in this state. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Representative McCluskie. That was great. When you were talking about your favorite restaurants and ordering online and picking up food, I think of all those things are going to stick around, but probably my favorite thing that's going to stick around, hopefully, with that is the QR codes and scanning them and coming up with the menu on your phone. And to think, QR codes have been around for a couple of years now, and no one really had used them that often before the pandemic. And now you see them pretty much in every single restaurant that you go to now, and scan it on your phone and you have your whole entire menu right there. So it's definitely one of my favorite things, I guess, coming out of this.
Mine as well. Thank you, Rob.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate your time, and please feel free to stick around as we welcome our first panel. First panel, we're going to be joined by a couple of Colorado small business owners. First one, Mark Wong from Wong Wares in Manitou Springs, and Nick Doyle from Nick's Italian in Fort Collins. All right, welcome, gentlemen. Great to see you guys. It's great to have you here. Why don't we go ahead and have Mark kick us off. Tell us a little bit about Wong Wares and how you got started with your business.
Well, you can guess probably that I'm a potter, and I got started out of college actually when I moved back to Colorado and got a space at the Manitou Art Center and was there for 7-8 years making pots before I started my own studio here in Manitou. I do lots of orders. People will come to me for mugs, for specialty mugs, for mugs for breweries, and that is an aspect that actually took off a bit because of the pandemic. There was lots of restaurants and breweries that were kind of scrambling, trying to figure out what kind of income source they could have. And so a few breweries started looking for local potters to make mugs, so you do a mug club. There's a couple of ways of doing that. I had one brewery that I made mugs, and they would sell those with their beers to go, and they would say, this mug is good for entry into a party at a future date once this is all over. So people hold on to those mugs, and then they can come back and be able to have a good time together eventually.
I love that idea. It's such a great concept. I have a little bit of echo, but I think we're okay there. Nick, welcome. Can you tell us a little bit about Nick's Italian and how you got started with the restaurant, and maybe a little bit about that award you won for Best Burger in Town?
Okay, yeah. Well, I went to school in Fort Collins, and I worked for 2 restaurant groups for a long time, the Rio Grande Restaurant Group, which I started at the day it opened in Fort Collins in 1986. And I worked for those guys for a long time. Then I worked for the Kitchen Restaurant Group for a number of years and opened up several restaurants for them. And while I was working for them, I wanted to do my own thing. I'd been thinking about it for a number of years. And I was living back in Fort Collins, and my business partner and I started looking around, and it's sort of it's always a dream to open my own restaurant. And I'm right across the street from the university on College Avenue, and we get a lot of CSU faculty and staff. And so it's been great. And, things were going good. It takes a while to get things going. Fort Collins was a bit overserved with restaurants at the time, and it takes a while to get noticed. And, we started getting noticed. We won Best Burger. When I opened, we didn't have a burger on the menu, but, we call it eliminate the veto. So everybody's going to your restaurant and I don't feel like Italian, but we have a great burger, we have chicken wings, we have a couple other things on the menu that are a broader spectrum of options for people who are going out to eat. And the Fort Collins, Coloradoan was running a March Madness special about the best burger in town, and out of 80 restaurants, Nick's won. We were the final 4, and we won, which is a huge surprise to us because we didn't expect to. Nobody even knew we really had a burger, but I think over that month, people started coming in to check it out. So the Colorado one really helped us out with regards to winning that award. And since that, after that, business started picking up, and then the pandemic hits, and we all know what that did to restaurants. So we're hopeful and optimistic. It feels a lot better than it did a year ago, where we are now. And it's like, I see some light at the end of the tunnel.
Good. Congratulations, by the way, on that burger.
Thanks.
Can't wait to try it next time I'm in Fort Collins. Why don't I just go ahead and jump right in and ask, I think, a pretty important and relevant question I think the audience would like to know, and that's just, how's your year going? It's been a pretty difficult 12 plus months with the pandemic and so many businesses being impacted across the country and across globe. But would just like to hear from you guys what the past year has been like for your business, from the beginning of lockdowns in March of 2020 to where we are now in April 2021.
Well, on my side of it, I was just starting to open my studio up to do lessons. And I was actually doing lessons at the local art center as well. And of course, that went away. I can't do anything in person. So I started to try to figure out a way that people could still get their hands on some clay and be safe about it. So I actually started a service where I would drop off a workboard and a bag of clay at their house. And then I made a YouTube channel where they could see how to do some hand building at home. And whatever they made, I come back and pick it up later and fire it for them and bring it back. And I had a little route around town where I go all over El Paso County and drop off clay in bags and drop off pots that people had made. And people really appreciate it because they're all stuck at home. And so they got a chance to make something and interact online and get something out of it too. Because people were making, one big one was dice towers. They were making their own dice towers, which is for role-playing games. They would toss the dice in there and they come shooting out of the tower, and that's the rolls they get. But yeah, that was a big one.
Very nice. Nick, how about you? How's your year been?
Well, as I said a minute ago, a year ago, about now, my business partner and I thought we were probably going to close. This is right before we heard anything about the PPP loans and any sort of help for restaurants. I mean, the initial thoughts were dire and scary and stressful, and it was, it was probably the toughest couple months of my life. Then we got to reopen in end of May, June for some takeout, and then we started doing dine in maybe sometime in June, and then it's people were supportive and coming in and supporting the restaurants, and a big part of me has always been my staff. I was always known as the culture guy at the other restaurants I worked at, and making sure the staff feel valued and all that. So you go from 42 employees down, then everybody's just gone. And then when we reopened, I could only hire a few people back. And right now I only have 9 employees, and we're only doing dinner only. But it's been a huge learning curve about how to operate differently, how to look forward on in the future and see what we need to do as a restaurant and what we need to change and get rid of. And it's been kind of a blessing a little bit. Everybody sees some silver linings in COVID and how that affected their lives and so forth. And I'm glad to hear that you and Julie like the QR codes, because that's what we have. And one of the big things, with the mandated minimum wage increase over the last few years has been really hard on restaurants. The margins get skinnier and skinnier all the time. So one thing that we might do is called order and pay, where you'd have the QR code, you put in your credit card, and you're just ordering your drinks, you're ordering your food, and it takes out the server's equation, but they still come to you, deliver your drinks. But we could operate with a lot less staff, and frankly, that's what we already needed to do that prior to COVID to be more profitable. So that's something we're probably going to do. But as far as tech goes, I didn't, the QR codes are really cool. We were already doing online ordering, and I had a delivery service. But so as far as tech has helped me, it's not real tangible for me. I don't know exactly how much has helped the restaurant business, but I did hear somebody say something about, I don't know which one of you said it, but doing more campaigns with engaging with my guests, my social media people. I could probably do that a little more. So that's something I just learned, that you can ask them kind of questions about what they miss on the menu, because my menu went from pretty big to really small right now, because we can only operate with a handful of employees right now. So we can't possibly do everything we used to. But I'm feeling better right now. I feel like there's like I said, light at the end of the tunnel, and the changes we're going to make to the restaurant will make it, I think, more profitable and a bit easier to run.
Awesome. I'm happy to hear that. Mark and Nick as well, but just kind of curious to hear what your online presence was like before the pandemic hit. Mark, you mentioned doing some YouTube videos. for kind of in-person virtual versus virtual lessons. And curious to hear if you had done YouTube videos before, or if that's something new that you started doing during the pandemic.
It was a brave new world. I got myself a GoPro on my birthday, and which was in April. So I started making videos then. I'd never done it before, and yeah, stretching some muscles I'd never stretched before. It was fun.
Very nice. Nick, how was your online presence before the pandemic?
Well, social media, Instagram and Facebook. I had a company up in Fort Collins, Aspen Grove Marketing, helping me out with that. And then when we closed, I said, sorry, we don't need your help anymore. So I started doing it. And while we were closed for several months, I still was posting things about what's going on at the restaurant, what myself and my daughters are doing. I was also posting things about where I was eating out or going to a coffee shop after things opened up more. And that was something I'd never done before, but I just did it yesterday, actually. I went to this place in Fort Collins and got some breakfast, and I have an old 1978 Vespa scooter that it's kind of branded with Nick's, and I kind of park it in front of where I'm at and take a picture, and I say, hey, thanks to so-and-so business for a great breakfast. And I just did that without thinking about it, but it's been just kind of, we're all in this together, small businesses, and that's been a lot of fun. And the engagement you get from people liking that and knowing that, we're all supporting each other. That's been something that is really cool. And I feel good about being part of that in this town, where local restaurants have really been helping each other out and, saying, hey, we're closed tonight, but why don't you go check these guys out? And it's been pretty cool how everybody's in the small restaurant, locally owned owners are helping each other out like that.
Yeah, definitely. The sense of community is just so strong right now, and people really do love small businesses and want them to do well and want them to survive. And one of our pieces of research that we came out with last year, we studied the impact of coronavirus on small businesses and how digital tools have kind of helped them get through this really, really tough time. And one of the things that we found was that small businesses that had fairly solid online infrastructure in place before the pandemic fared or are faring better off than those small businesses that didn't have a strong online presence. And from our research, we talk about this digital transformation that's been taking place, over the last decade, it seems. And over the last 12 plus months, it's just been kind of this forced mechanism that digital transformation is happening. And what we've seen is that, these businesses that had already like an online presence or a CRM in place with their customer information or an online marketplace already established to sell their products, these businesses are doing much better. Whereas the businesses that had to pivot and go online and figure out how to use these new tools, how to figure out using YouTube and making videos, they struggled, and not all of them fared so well. And one of the things that we're really trying to incorporate into 3C and what we do is educational resources for small businesses. So curious to hear your thoughts on what technology platforms and what government can do to kind of encourage small businesses that might not be as technology savvy or digitally advanced as their counterparts, and what type of programs might be helpful from platforms and from policy experts in government.
Well, I'm definitely happy to be an outlier since I was able to pivot to the technology and make it work. But to speak to that, I really am a neophyte on this situation, so I wouldn't know where to begin to offer to think about what kind of resources would be out there. So I guess education would be an important one of finding out what resources are out there.
Yeah, and I think what Mark said was kind of what I was thinking. Is I'm not too well versed in I think just education, and if I knew a little bit more about how the other restaurants were doing some things that seemed really successful. And our online presence, as you pointed out, Rob, was pretty good before the pandemics, and it was interesting to hear that people who did have that presence are faring well, or it's working out better for them. And I always wanted to stay relevant when we were closed for a couple of months, so that's why I was posting things. And just told them kind of what we're doing at the restaurant, or it was just that didn't really have any direction about the restaurant. It was just like, there I was with, something with my staff that we're doing. Maybe I had one where my staff and I went on a hike, and I said, we're not at the restaurant, but we're outside enjoying Colorado. And so if I knew a little bit more about what could help restaurants would be helpful for me.
Yeah, definitely. I think, there are so many resources out there, for small businesses and micro businesses, and kind of figuring out and navigating what tools might work best for your business. And each business is different. And, there might be a really great tool for you that might not be the same best tool for another business. And what we're trying to do is trying to, navigate the best way for small businesses to connect with these digital tools and platforms and help them learn and understand. And various programs such as SBDC, SCORE are all across the country there for small businesses. And they're such a great resource that not many people know about, and they're there to help. And so what we've done is try to partner with them on various initiatives and resources and education. And that's one of the things that we're really trying to hit hard as we start to reopen the economy and everyone start to get back into business is, train and educate small businesses how to use these digital tools. Only got a few minutes left here, and just want to kind of pick your guys' brains on what your vision for the future is like for your business as it relates to growth for your business itself and in the online economy.
So pottery is a very tactile thing, and people like to pick it up and feel it. So I've never really had much luck with Etsy or sales online. I get my business when people come to me and they feel it in their hands. So it's a lot of fun doing the digital thing, and people making stuff at home has been a great experience. I'm not sure how much of that's going to happen going forward though, because it seems like people are getting out and doing stuff again. They're not stuck at home as much. I do have a steady stream of customers still, but it seems to be declining a little bit. So I've always been of a wait and see kind of thing, and I'm going to keep making pieces, and as long as I'm in demand, I'll keep my studio open for people to come by and just watch it grow.
Mark, how are you selling your products? Or do you have an e-commerce platform or engine that you use? Or
I'm on Facebook, and people can order there, but I have a lot of business from word of mouth, and also I do mugs for local businesses with their logos on them. And then the other businesses will see that, and they'll come to me and ask for mugs of their own. And so I have probably about a dozen breweries and restaurants that I service with mugs and dinnerware. And it's mostly been word of mouth, because I've really kind of fallen down the whole advertising thing. But I'm still busy, so I can't really complain about that.
Nick,
and Nick's is pretty much been word of mouth since I opened, and I'm looking forward to when people feel a little, when people are getting vaccinated and getting more comfortable going out. I've had in the past few weeks a couple dozen couples come in that have not been out in a year, and Nick's was their first place they went to. So I'm looking forward to when we get to some herd immunity and all that, and people start coming out, and there's some changes that Nick's isn't going to be the same Nick's as it used to be. And I know some people aren't going to be fans of that. Some favorite menu item of theirs was not coming back. But I call it Nick's greatest hits. That's what's on the menu, the top 5 of these certain things. And that's what the menu is. And that's part of what I was alluding to earlier. That's what we've learned is we don't need to do this much. A lot of restaurants are realizing they don't need to have such big menus. They don't need to have as many managers. They don't need to have just as all the hoops we used to have to jump through to open a restaurant every day. It's gotten a little bit smaller, easier to run. But one thing I was going to talk about is we're all worried right now in the industry, just more recently, because now I'm realizing we have to staff up. And I've had posting a couple ads in Craigslist, and also putting feelers out there to friends I know. Hey, I need a cook, I need a server, I need a bartender. I've gotten 0 applicants in about a month. And so a woman from the Fort Collins, Colorado, emailed me yesterday talking about this problem that she's heard about in Fort Collins, that restaurant owners can find help. And that's because they were pretty happy getting unemployment and the other, the money that they were getting. And a lot of people moved away, got out of the industry. I'm not really sure what happened, but it's concerning right now. But I'm looking forward to the future. But that part of it is a little concerning.
Yeah, definitely. I like the optimism, and it's good to stay that way. And hopefully over the next couple of months, we'll continue on this path to reopening, and we'll find that sense of normalcy again, hopefully soon this summer. So thank you guys very much for your time and sharing your expertise with us. Good luck and be safe. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to talk.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks.
All right, so let's go ahead and transition to our next panel discussion and talk a little bit about how technology and public policy kind of intersect with economic development, or in this instance, economic recovery. I'm happy to welcome in our next panelist, Cynthia Eicher, the President and CEO of Visit Fort Collins, and Chris Romer, the President and CEO of the Vail Valley Partnership. Hi, everyone.
Hey, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So I'm sure some of our audience might already be familiar with your organizations, but can you both tell us a little bit more about the organization you run, starting with you, Cynthia?
Absolutely. So Visit Fort Collins is kind of that marketing arm for the city. So we have, in my mind, one of the best jobs ever. We get to tell you all the good, fun, cool, exciting things to come do in our destination. And, Chris has an amazing location too. So sometimes, we're encouraging people to go to both locations or other places in Colorado. So we have an opportunity to be very collaborative, I think, in our industry. So not only amongst our own community, but throughout Colorado. So it's pretty much a win-win when I get up every day. So good stuff in Colorado.
Oh, yeah.
And similarly, Vail Valley Partnership is the Chamber of Commerce, Economic Development Corporation, and Destination Sales and Marketing Organization representing Eagle County. So home to Vail and Beaver Creek, of course, but also Edwards and Eagle and Gypsum and Minturn, Red Cliff. So we have quite a few different towns and areas throughout our service region, and we do a little bit of everything: business services, leadership, professional development, business retention and attraction, all types of ways to help our businesses thrive.
Awesome. I have to say, I'm a huge fan of Colorado, huge fan of Fort Collins. Vail, Beaver Creek is one of my favorite ski resorts, and I hope one day I'll be able to make it back there for a ski trip because it's just phenomenal skiing. So you guys are lucky to be living out there.
The invitation is open to both Fort Collins and Eagle County. We'd welcome you back.
Perfect. Can't wait. So great. We have a panel of some Colorado experts here, and they're going to speak to us about where we are now and where we go in the future in a post-pandemic world. And would like each of you to just kind of touch on Colorado's tourism economy and how business leaders like yourselves are working to promote an up-and-coming and innovative environment that draws visitors and attracts investments and ultimately lifts local businesses in your area.
Ladies first, Cynthia.
I was afraid you were going to say that, Chris. All right. So, much like our small business partners we heard from earlier, this ripple was kind of nonstop, right? The pandemic and having to kind of stop things on a dime and unknowns, and how do we help, and how can we stand in the gap? Chris and I both have really the privilege to help our small businesses in so many ways. Chris mentioned economic development and resiliency, and those are things that we are doing every day. But when the rules change or there are no rules, right? How do you navigate that? And one thing that we watched as we went through this, our restaurant communities were impacted, so significantly. So were retailers, so were hoteliers. I am sure similar story in Chris's neighborhood also, in that we had hotels shut for 2 and 3 months. I still have a few that are only open on weekends because they're balancing that need for staffing and, operational costs versus your revenue models. And so we're not out of the woods yet. I'm like Nick, and then I'm still optimistic, and we continue to be creative and innovative. And one thing I'll mention, and then Chris needs to jump right in after this, but we created an e-commerce site. We looked at so many of, in particular, our downtown retailers who did not have online presences. They may not have engaged in social media type of things, which we can stand in the gap, and we do kind of anyway to invite folks to enjoy Fort Collins. But I became more and more concerned as we watched the calendar tick by and what was going to happen with our holiday season, right? We just simply didn't know. Could we be open? Could we not be open? And so we chose to create a platform for all Fort Collins businesses. We made the decision in about a week. We found an amazing company called Code Geek. They have a location in Fort Collins and one in Aurora, and they said yes to this crazy journey. And in 13 weeks, we created an e-commerce platform. We found sponsors, and we just ask a 5% admin fee to help us pay for some of those just ongoing costs. And we tried to make it less time intensive, right? It's not fun to figure out some of these things when you are figuring out so many other things. So we asked them to have between 1 and 25 products, right? And then we're going to hopefully grow that. But it worked pretty well. And we had a few folks who told us without this particular tool, they may have gone out of business. So we feel like it was a good step for us. We're going to continue it. We think there is definitely a use for this beyond our pandemic timeframe, and work to continue to grow. But that was probably our most significant step in a new technology direction.
Perfect. And real quick, Cynthia, what was the name of that marketplace called?
It's the Fort Collins Marketplace. So absolutely, you can find some fun things on there, and we're trying to add to it every day.
Perfect. Thank you. Chris?
Yeah, thank you. And Cynthia, that's such a great example. I love so much. When I heard you were doing that, I thought it was brilliant. I still think it's brilliant. I imagine it will have life after the pandemic as well, because you have a national brand, right? There's people who have, maybe they went to school there or have friends and family there, and they want a piece of Fort Collins no matter where they are. So I think it's such a great example of that idea of moving from recovery to resiliency. And that's something we've really tried to embrace here as we go through a lot of our different efforts. We moved pretty quickly from the idea of recovery to resiliency. How do we help our businesses survive now but thrive into the future? And that's a pretty significant shift in the way you need to think about the problems that are in front of you. And in our case, well, first of all, for Colorado, because you had phrased the question for Colorado, tourism and hospitality were among the most impacted industries with COVID during the initial shutdown and even with the recovery aspect. So the focus on tourism, and as Representative McCluskie shared at the beginning, it's one of our biggest industries in the state. So we really do need this focus. In our case, in Eagle County, 90% of our businesses have 20 or fewer employees, and 80% of our businesses have 10 or fewer employees. So we are a community of small businesses. It's bricks and mortar, it's mom and pop. But we have a pretty thriving location neutral environment, and the Zoom town trend that came about, and technology is such a huge part of how we, both our traditional bricks and mortar as well as our second homeowners, and the Zoom town phenomenon of people who are able to work anywhere, being able to choose to work here. And that convergence of those two different things, I think, really helped our community to bounce back a lot faster than we thought we might. And we still have some work to do, but we had more second homeowners here. We launched an entire web platform called Welcome Home Neighbor to mobilize all of our real estate agents and nonprofits and everyone who had a connection to this place through owning a second or third home, and invited them to come back. And that helped our bricks and mortar. We have businesses who adapted really, really quickly to online ordering, both restaurants and retail who had never done that before. So using the use of technology, I think, helped us on that path to resiliency much. As Cynthia shared, many of these businesses would not have survived without having the different tools that were made available to them. Some of them at very low cost, and some of them at maybe a more meaningful budgetary investment. But embracing technology really did help people.
Yeah, definitely. Through our research that we've been working on over the last year, we looked at various sectors and industries and the different impacts that coronavirus has had and how digital tools are helping them. And what we found was pretty interesting was that the tourism and hospitality industry, even though it was severely impacted by coronavirus, digital tools are still such a huge help to businesses. They are the most what we call digitally advanced businesses, but given all the circumstances of the global pandemic, they were limited with how they can use these tools. And so what we're trying to come away with, and Chris, you were talking a little bit about going from resiliency, is the need for education and training for these small businesses, because tourism is hopefully going to pick up, hospitality, restaurants and everything are hopefully going to see that boom sometime this summer, and trying to keep up with that kind of demand and capture it so that would last into the future is something that we're really trying to through our organization and through policy and government too. So I kind of want to change the subject a little bit and talk a little bit about some kind of current event stuff that's going on. And it's no secret that we've seen heightened scrutiny and a little bit more activity at the policy and regulatory level aimed at the technology sector over the last year. And as conversations amongst lawmakers kind of pick up a little bit about the role of technology in today's economy, including in the tourism industry in Colorado, what would you like to see as part of that conversation amongst government leaders and policymakers?
Yeah, I'll take this one first since I made Cynthia go first last time, and she called me out on it. I think this is such an important discussion because I think that Colorado's political leadership, elected officials and appointed folks and everything else, absolutely need to embrace the role that technology plays in helping us continue to recover and move to that resiliency timeframe. There's a lot of good tools out there, such as the Small Business Development Center and SCORE that were brought up in the earlier panel. And every time we've seen a recession and economic hardships, we've seen more and more startup businesses. And the unique thing about Colorado is we are collaborative. It's not the Hunger Games, right? We're not out there like all trying to kill each other to move forward. We're trying to help each other and to bring each other up. And that happens across industry sector. But Colorado's political leadership absolutely needs to play an active role in supporting the small business community. And frankly, there's not a better way for them to do that than by embracing the broadband infrastructure, the technology, the tools that exist. We need to continue to make it more accessible and be pro-technology and view these tools and resources as our partners in recovery and our partners in economic growth, and not from a overly regulatory standpoint. We absolutely need to view them as our partners.
Definitely. Yeah. Cynthia, how about you?
Yes, I think that was so well stated. And it's a fine balance. We understand the need for privacy rules and some of those things, but access and appropriate investments in Fort Collins, we're very fortunate. About a year and a half, almost 2 years ago, our community voted to install broadband as our community. It is now a utility for Fort Collins. I got my notice a couple of weeks ago on my door hanger. I can sign up. Well, that's on my to-do list, right? Because I can have 1 gig for $50 a month. It's phenomenal. So I think infrastructure components are important, continuing to invest in that. One of the things, and I know Chris is aware of this too, the Colorado Tourism Office and OEDIT, our economic development teams, took a look at all of the types of commerce things or the new innovations that were going, and they integrated that into their offerings, right? So you could find that in a variety of places, and they really worked hard to elevate that, recognizing that everyone needed some extra help. I too think some of those things are going to continue, and smartly so, right? Compression of what we all just experienced, that acceleration, and then just keeping some of the best tools. And I also think, I think this was also something Chris made me think about, is that the technology, and I was really personally passionate about this, is that we brought the technology forward so that everyone's front doors could still open, right, at that next appropriate time. But we had to figure out how to stand in the gap and do it differently and do it together. So making sure that our bricks and mortars were all here, because that's part of what we love about the experience, I think, in all of our communities. So that was a really important component for us too.
Yeah, and Rob, if I could, Cynthia said something that sparked a thought in me. We exist in a global marketplace. Colorado is an international brand, and we're competing not just for visitors, but we're competing for talent. We're competing for investment. We're competing for jobs with other states and other areas. And what better way to be attractive to those people than by investing in our technology? We need to. It's not even a question.
Definitely, and I agree 100% there. Small businesses, themselves are fairly uncertain about what the near future holds, and they can only hope that they can grow and expand, just like they were before the pandemic. And I think, the threat of government trying to impose new regulations or legislation at the technology platforms that provide these tools and services to these small businesses just adds more to that uncertainty for what that future holds for them. So thank you both for that. Before we wrap up, I'm just curious to hear your thoughts on what you think the future holds for small businesses in your communities, and what government officials and technology platforms like Google and Facebook and Amazon can do to kind of support, the sense of community, the sense of coming together and growing small businesses to where they should, hopefully be later in the year.
Cynthia, your turn.
Somehow I knew that was coming. Okay. I think that appropriate boundaries or legislation, like, the ability for our restaurant friends to have alcohol to go, right? I'm not sure in our wildest dreams we would have, thought about last summer that you could pick up an amazing mixed drink from your favorite person and take it home. And yet it worked really well. And it helped our restaurant friends, stay stable and keep their doors open, or increasing patio usage and how that works in our Old Town Square or on Linden Street. And Chris will have his own version of that, right? Those are things that increase an experience, memories, how we want to interact with our communities and our small businesses. We know that the balance needs to be there, but it can be. I hope we also learn that it doesn't take 24 months to solve things, right? It can actually take 6, 8, and 12 weeks if we're smart about it, if we're dedicated about it, if we're willing to show up and have those conversations. So my hope is that we've learned that speed can impact things positively, that we don't have to, take so long to get to some really good decisions. I don't think we should do them silly, but I do think we can make some of those things happen. Chris is a great example of how many small businesses and the size of businesses in the Vail Valley, right? That is prevalent in so many places, and those are the difference makers, right? We love, maybe some of our key department stores in town, but the ones that make your heart sing are individuals, right? The relationships and the doors and the smiles and the people that you know. So we're going to keep fostering to do everything we can to make those things continue in all the right ways. I do think online needs to continue. I think we've got to make that easy. I would like to make it easy so that when you do get home and you have that, you know, scratch your head moment for your favorite ball cap or the most fabulous, you know, chocolate you can buy, I'm going to make that easy for you. So again, it's balance of both sides of that, but I'm optimistic. I think we've seen how creative and innovative we can be, and I think there's more of that to come.
Yeah, and I'll keep it relatively tight in the interest of time. I think that the platforms you mentioned, as I look forward, I think we're going to see more and more people viewing them as partners and distribution channels rather than as competition. It's not competition. It is an additional distribution channel, and you need to be there. And our small businesses need to grow their brands from only the bricks and mortar to the types of things Cynthia's built in Fort Collins and to these national platforms, and use them and think about them as distribution channels to reach that many more people and that much of a larger audience. I think there's a huge opportunity there. And of course, we need the background foundational tech to make that happen. But a lot of these tools and digital marketing and e-commerce tools are well within reach and affordable for people. And I think everyone needs to embrace it, because those channels, Amazon's not your competitor. They're a distribution channel. They have thousands, hundreds of thousands probably, of small businesses who sell on that platform. And I think people increasingly are going to look for those.
Well said. Well, perfect timing, you guys. This is excellent. And thank you both for sharing your expertise and participation today. Really, really appreciate it. And thank you to Representative McCluskie for taking the time to join us as well. And thank you to our audience for joining us online today. This recorded webcast will be available on the 3C YouTube page following this event. So feel free to rewatch and share with your friends and colleagues and other small businesses. And with that, everybody, please be safe and be well. Thank you very much.